Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
I have a story for you today. So, this past February 2026, I almost lost my DJI Osmo Nano and my Chimera 5 and a 4S lithium-ion battery that I had made for it. It was a disastrously sad event, and thankfully I was able to recover my drone, but it was so stressful, and I'll tell you the story of what happened. So it had snowed recently. It was the big ice storm that hit in 2026 for much of the East Coast, and it was a beautiful sunset, and it was icy and snowy, and I was like, oh, what I gotta do, I gotta get my drone, and I gotta go take out and get some good sunset pics, which I did get, so it was worth something. But what I was doing was I basically just climbed to the top of a hill near me and kind of flew up high and was taking sunset pictures, and I made several very unfortunate mistakes. So the first mistake was I did not wait for GPS lock, because I was like, I'm just like, I have a GPS on my Chimera 5, and I should have waited for the lock, but I was like, I'm just gonna throw it up real quick, get a sunset picture, come right back down. I don't even know if I had fully charged up my battery for this event. It was just gonna be a real quick thing. Was planning on being outside 5 minutes, so I was just like, all right, throw it up, throw it back down. So I didn't wait for GPS lock, and that was the first mistake that I made. And then the second mistake that I made was I had put the I just finished building this lithium-ion battery it was a 4S lithium-ion battery for my drone. And I'd done some testing before, so that I knew the battery was working well. I was able to fly for almost like 15 minutes with this thing, which was awesome. And I made it, by the way, from a recycled battery vacuum cleaner, which was super fun. One of my neighbors was throwing away a battery vacuum cleaner, and the vacuum part of it was toast, but the batteries were totally still good. So I like stole it and sneaked over there, stole it, took apart the whole thing, took out the batteries, and then threw away the rest of the vacuum. But then they were solid batteries. They were 2,000 milliamp hours. I don't have like an internal resistance checker, but it seems like they're totally able to handle the output power, or the output current requirements for flying a 5-inch semi-lightweight drone. Obviously, don't follow my examples without knowing really what you're doing. And I did a lot of very careful testing to make sure, but the batteries don't get hot, and they are able to provide the amount of power that my drone needs, which is awesome. But this battery pack is much taller and way bigger than the batteries that I usually fly on this drone. They are, because it's 4 18650 cells. Usually I fly a fairly small 4S 850 LiPo, and that's significant because I've done a lot of testing on this drone. The drone was like 2 months old at this point. I've done a lot of testing on the drone without an action camera and the 850s, and I've done a tiny bit of testing with the action camera. I was using the DJI Osmo Nano action camera, which I mentioned before, and I did a tiny little bit of testing with that, but I hadn't done a lot of testing. And basically what I realized was, after the fact, that I have a Foxeer Lollipop 4 maybe on the back of the camera, on the back of the VTX, and which is a good quality antenna, but it's kind of short-ish. And whereas it was working before with the 4S LiPo, it was below the height of the 4S Lion. And basically what happened was, I also think the VTX, I got this VTX used from another drone that somebody else had used, and I have a feeling they must have flown it a couple times with the battery UFL disconnected somehow. And I think the VTX is a bit shot, because I get very, very poor range and penetration with this specific VTX. It's a Darwin FPV 600 milliwatt VTX, and maybe I have it set up incorrectly in Betaflight or something. I need to do some more troubleshooting there, but I think the VTX is not very strong, which was another kind of blow to my situation. So basically what happened was I threw it up in the air, no GPS, and an antenna that was shorter than, that was blocked by the the battery and the action camera if the drone is like not, if the, you know, if the antenna is like on my side of me, then it's good. But as soon as I turn around, if I like, for example, flew away from myself and then turned around, the antenna was instantly blocked. And that's what happened. I was flying around and it was a very windy day. I was fighting the wind, and what happened was it kind of blew me to my back and left. And I was looking around at the scenery, kind of looking with the camera still pointing to me, and then the wind blew me pretty hard back and left. And the antenna instantly became covered, and I fully lost the video feed. Like, not like breakup, not like, oh, it's like breakup and then gray, black and white, and then it goes away. It was like zip, nothing. And I freaked out. And I did what you should do in this situation. Well, what you should do is wait for GPS lock, and that's the moral of the story. And you should have good antennas, which is the moral of the story. And you should test your antenna setup, and you should have a good VTX. Those are all the lessons learned. But I didn't do those. All those three things all happened to me. And then, but yeah, basically lost the video signal completely. And what I did was I switched to angle mode, which is the right thing to do. And then what I tried to do was gain altitude, which was also the correct thing to do. Unfortunately for me, it didn't work in this situation because the wind was so strong that even though, since there was no like GPS return to home initiated or anything like that, or GPS like stable position hold, even though the drone was, I think in theory holding level, the wind was blowing it super fast and super hard and just further and further away from me. And then by time I probably spent maybe 10 to 15 seconds hoping that video feed would come back after I switched to angle. It was probably even less than that. It was very quick. I quickly ripped off my goggles, but at that point the drone was beyond line of sight because there were like lots of trees in the area. And so I basically like lost complete control of the drone and tried flying higher for a little bit, tried to see if I could see it, and I couldn't hear it at this point, and I couldn't see it anymore, and the wind was just like taking it. And so after about 25 seconds, I disarmed it, which in hindsight was the correct choice. It was like, if I had waited even 5 more seconds, I think I wouldn't have been able to recover the drone. I wouldn't have been able to find it. So basically, I just disarmed it 200 feet up in the air, and I was like, well, I'm going to lose the drone, probably break the drone, but at the very least, hopefully I can get the Osmo Nano back, or hopefully I can get some motors back that work or something. It was like, last resort. And then side note, on this drone, I did have this, but on all your drones, especially larger drones that maybe Tiny Whoops skip this, but larger drones have your name and number on it in case someone does find it. They can return it to you. And I was, at least in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe somebody will find it. But anyway, yeah, it crashed, and it crashed on a like a shopping mall roof, almost half a mile from me. I was floored by how far away it went in that 30 seconds, I think. It wasn't that long, 30 seconds, 45 seconds max. The wind was just taking it, and it was gone. But yeah, it crashed. And I think it worked out okay for me that the snow was there. Miraculously, the drone was okay, and miraculously, the Osmo Nano was okay. So big shout out to the Osmo Nano for its durability. The TPU that I had on there for holding the camera, I think probably helped. The TPU ripped, which was good, so that absorbed some impact, and then a propeller broke, so that absorbed some impact. But the frame and the motors were totally fine, which was amazing. So honestly, I've been super happy with the Chimera 5 with its durability. It can fall from 200 feet and be fine, which was crazy. Maybe the snow helped me a little bit, but then, yeah, basically I'll talk through my recovery process now. So video feed was long gone. But thankfully the battery was not ejected. I got really lucky on that one. And so lesson learned from there is make sure your batteries are strapped down hard. because if I had lost this drone and crashed the drone and the battery was still, it was miraculous, honestly, that the battery was still connected and that the drone was still operating. I still had ELRS connection, which is just crazy. ELRS is like so good, and it was spotty for sure. It was very spotty, but I was able to basically. It took me a long time, and it also didn't help that it was so much farther away than I thought. I thought it was like in the neighborhood next to me, and I spent a bunch of time like walking the neighborhood, asking people that I saw if they had seen it, and just kind of like looking at roofs, looking at trees, like everywhere that I could. And then basically what I ended up doing was just following the RSSI DBM signal on. I pulled up the ELRS I went to the model, and then I went to the sensors tab, and I just followed where I basically just kind of walked in circles and was basically triangulating where the signal was the strongest. And I eventually walked in the right direction, and then and I had my goggles with me, so I was constantly checking to see, okay, am I close enough that I have video feed again? Am I close enough that I have video feed and like maybe I can at least see where it is? And then eventually I got close enough, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have video feed again. It's on the roof here, and then I was able to recover it, which was amazing. I was so happy. I was so happy that I was able to do that. But so all the lessons learned that I mentioned, great. And then another thing that if you fly drones that you should work out for yourself is understand how to use the ELRS connection signals. So link quality, and it wasn't very helpful here because it was basically just like, I don't remember what it was sitting at, but it was just sitting at like 30 the entire time. And then once I finally got close to it, it picked back up. Or maybe even the link quality was like high. It was like 90 or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was basically just like, most of the packets, I think that's what it was. Most of the packets were getting through, but that doesn't tell you like how far or where you are relative to it. Whereas the RSSI DPM value does tell you that. So learn to understand what that is. And some ELRS Lua scripts, I think, can even have like a drone finder thing. And that is one of my next steps before I do anything else crazy with this drone is I need to, or generally anywhere, I need to figure out how to use that. And this wouldn't have helped me until I was closer, but also if you fly analog, for example, which this whole thing was analog, by the way, if you do fly analog, learn some receivers, which I think mine has, but it's not very good. The SpeedyB receiver, the 5.8 gigahertz analog receiver, has like a drone finder, and so it'll just kind of like beep as you're getting closer or farther. And I'm pretty sure you can set your controller to do the same thing. So make sure that you understand how to use your drone recovery tools if you need to. And I think that's relevant for even if you do, have all your GPS return to home, GPS position recovery, all that. Because sometimes you can, those things can fail, or sometimes you can crash and those things are not working, or sometimes you, whatever it may be. I think it's really, really important. The lesson from this story is make sure you set yourself up so you don't lose your drone, and then also make sure you understand how to use drone recovery and finder tools, because those are super duper important. And a really interesting data point that I did not use to help me recover the drone, but would have been tremendously valuable if I had known it, was when I disarmed the drone in the air, the drone flipped as it was falling, and my goggles actually connected again to the drone. I didn't know this because I didn't have them on, and the only reason that I ever discovered this was because I took the DVR footage off of the goggles like after the fact, after I'd already recovered the drone, and I was like, wait, the HE0 goggles, they like auto stop and start the recordings, and I was like, wow, there's another recording on here. What's this? And it was the drone falling from the sky. And so another tiny little but very important detail for maybe if this ever happens to you again in the future is if you lose connection, check your DVR footage, especially for like HE0 goggles or something, or check your DVR footage if it's like a continuous recording, maybe at some point there was like an orientation of the drone and you that recovered the goggles, but like when you were looking, it never connected again. So that was a really interesting little thing that after the fact I wish I had known, but I did not. I hope that you guys enjoyed the epic crash that occurred with this drone. Thankfully it was fine, so thankfully I'm still rolling with it. And make sure you wait for GPS lock before you take off. Freaking do it. All right, love you guys, bye.